Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down complex clinical research into clear, actionable insights you can actually use. Today, we're going to look beyond the current guideline-directed medical therapy. We're exploring the next wave of kidney protective agents for your patients with chronic kidney disease. Okay, let's get right into it. All right, first things first. To really appreciate where we're headed, we gotta be clear about where we are right now. So let's quickly touch on the big wins and, the really crucial limitations of our current therapies. Our current guidelines, built on that foundation of RAS inhibition, have been totally transformed by SGLT2 inhibitors and non-steroidal MRAs. I mean, these have been huge breakthroughs, right? They give us these really impressive relative risk reductions in key kidney outcomes. We're talking around 38% for SGLT2 inhibitors and about 23% for NSMRAs. But, and this is the big but, even with these amazing advances, we're not eliminating the risk of progression to end-stage kidney disease, not by a long shot. And this substantial residual risk is exactly why the hunt for new, effective therapies is just so incredibly critical for our patients. Okay, let's jump into our first new class of agents, the GLP-1 receptor agonists. You know these, they're already completely changing the game in diabetes and obesity care, and it looks like nephrology is next. So we know they increase insulin secretion and promote satiety. But for us, in the world of CKD, here's the kicker. No dose adjustment is needed, even when you get into advanced disease. That is huge. But the real excitement, the thing we're all talking about, is that the benefits seem to go way beyond just glycemic control. We're seeing potential direct effects on renal inflammation and even hemodynamics. And that brings us to the landmark FLOW trial. This was the big one. The first dedicated kidney outcome study to really put a GLP-1 RA, in this case semaglutide, to the test in a high-risk population. We're talking over 3,500 patients with both type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease. And the results? It was pretty remarkable. A 24% lower incidence of that primary composite endpoint, so major kidney events or death from renal or cardiovascular causes. In fact, the evidence was so compelling that the trial was stopped early for efficacy. I mean, wow, that's about as powerful a signal as you can get for a clinically meaningful benefit. This is the kind of thing that's almost certainly going to change our practice guidelines. All right, next up, let's look at a class that targets a pathway we all know really well, aldosterone, but it does it with a brand new, more selective mechanism. So instead of blocking the mineralocorticoid receptor like the MRAs do, these aldosterone synthase inhibitors, or ASIs, stop aldosterone from even being produced in the first place. Think of it as turning off the tap rather than just plugging the drain. This direct inhibition gives us a whole different way to tackle the harmful pro-fibrotic and inflammatory effects of aldosterone on the kidney. So, a recent phase 2 trial with an ASI called BI690517 gave us some really interesting data. It showed a potent drop in albuminuria, about 35%. But here's the really crucial part. This benefit was seen on top of SGLT2 inhibitor therapy. That suggests a really powerful additive effect. Now, as you'd probably guess with this mechanism, the main side effect was a dose-dependent increase in serum potassium. And that's definitely going to be a key factor for us to manage in practice. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Now we're going to talk about a class of drugs that gets right to the heart of the matter for CKD, endothelial dysfunction. This is a core part of the pathophysiology, and this class targets it directly. Okay, so what these agents are trying to do, in essence, is restore vascular health. In CKD, that crucial nitric oxide signaling pathway gets all messed up because of oxidative stress. Well, SGC agonists are pretty clever. They just bypass that whole problem. They directly stimulate their target to boost CGMP, which in turn promotes vasodilation and might even reduce fibrosis. So what are we seeing in the clinic? Well, the early human trials have been really promising. They've shown a good safety profile and some pretty impressive reductions in albuminuria. We're talking a range of 19 to 56%. And importantly, this is happening even in patients who are already on standard RAS inhibition. So all of this has definitely paved the way for the larger outcome studies we're all waiting for to really confirm these benefits. And finally, let's get into the endothelin receptor antagonists. Now, this is a powerful class with a really long and kind of tricky history, and it's taught us some really important lessons about how to design clinical trials. So there's no question that targeting the endothelin system can powerfully slash proteinuria. The problem, The clinical challenge that has always been there is managing that off-target risk of sodium and fluid retention. That's the thing that can lead to edema and, of course, heart failure. And this slide just illustrates that story perfectly. It's all about the evolution of the field. You have the early ASEAN trial, which had to be stopped because of heart failure hospitalizations. But then, fast forward to the SONAR trial. It used a more ET-selective agent, and it succeeded. So what was the difference? Well, it was a really clever trial design. They used what's called an enrichment period to screen for and kick out patients who were prone to fluid retention. By doing that, they could safely show a fantastic 35% reduction in major kidney outcomes. So, after all that, what does this actually mean for your practice in the next few years? Let's wrap up and summarize the potential roles for all these emerging therapies. The key thing to see here is that each of these drug classes targets a different, non-overlapping mechanism of kidney injury, and that's absolutely critical. This isn't about replacing our current therapies, it's about building on them. It's about creating the potential for an additive, multi-pronged approach to finally chip away at and hopefully eliminate that residual cardiorenal risk. And really, this is the key question for all of us as clinicians, isn't it? The future isn't going to be a simple, one-size-fits-all stepped care approach. We're moving into a new paradigm, one where we're using combination therapy, tailoring it to each patient's specific risk profile to give them comprehensive cardiorenal protection. The toolkit is getting bigger and better, and with it, our ability to truly change the trajectory of this devastating disease.